Did you know that kinky wellness is integral to your self-development? Hi, welcome to The Partition, home of kinky wellness, the ultimate destination to explore the integral connection between kinky wellness and your personal development. I'm your host and kinky wellness coach, Dana Schurgel, and I'm here to show why kinky sexual wellness deserves a rightful spot within the wellness conversation. Don't forget to join me each Monday as I bring on a special guest to dive into specific aspects of kinky wellness. So let's strip away the shame and taboo together and have an open conversation about it. Hey, and welcome back again. In the last episode, Dr. Sajad was here to talk to us about life's various life traps and how they each stem from various forms of trauma that happen during the early stages of our development. But since we didn't get a chance to talk about each of them, this episode is dedicated to outlining all the 18 different types of life traps that we can have, which are also known as schemas. A schema is a mental framework that helps us organize, process, and store information about our environment. And it includes patterns and behaviors that can also be observed. These mental frameworks or schemas also influence how we interpret new experiences based on what pre-existing schema we may or may not have. But the thing about schemas is that they are difficult to change. Even when people are faced with contradictory information about themselves, people will often choose the comfort of their existing schema or life trap, as Dr. Sajad said, over the unknown or alternative schema. In psychologically healthy people, schemas tend to be mild and flexible mind states that can be easily calmed by the rest of their personality. In unhealthy people, schemas are more rigid and severe, and they seem to be hard to split off from the rest of their personality. According to American psychologist and founder of the Schema Therapy Institute, Jeffrey E. Young, there are 18 maladaptive schemas that we should know about. And these 18 schemas or life traps that someone can have, or rather live their life through, can be divided into 5 broad categories, which are disconnection/rejection, impaired autonomy and or performance, impaired limits, over-directedness, and overvigilance/inhibition. So starting with the first category, we have disconnection and rejection. And this includes 5 schemas, which are abandonment/instability, mistrust/abuse, emotional deprivation, defectiveness/shame, and social isolation/alienation. So if you live your life with an abandonment schema, this is when you have the perceived notion that the people around you are no longer going to be able to provide you emotional support, connection, strength, or practical protection because they may be emotionally unstable or unpredictable. The next is mistrust. Mistrust is the expectation that others will hurt, abuse, humiliate, cheat, lie, manipulate, or take advantage of you. The schema usually involves the perception that the harm is intentional or leave you feeling like you're getting the short end of the stick all the time. The second is emotional deprivation. So if you have this schema, although it may seem pretty straightforward, there are 3 major forms of deprivation for this. There is the deprivation of nutrients, which is the absence of attention, affection, warmth, or companionship. There's deprivation of empathy, which is the absence of understanding, absence of listening, absence of self-disclosure, or mutual sharing of feelings from other people. The third is deprivation of protection, which is the absence of strength, direction, or guidance from others. And if someone has a deprivation from any of these 3 sections, they will most likely have the expectation that no one will be able to adequately support their emotional needs in the future. The fourth is defectiveness/shame. This is when someone has the feeling that something is broken with them, or they have this constant feeling of being unwanted or inferior or invalid. People with this schema are hypersensitive to criticism, rejection, and blame. They are also self-conscious, insecure, and often compare themselves to others too, which is why they often try to hide their flaws or anything that could bring the feelings of shame because they don't want to give people around them a reason to not love them. The fifth schema is social isolation slash alienation. This is when someone has the feeling that they are isolated from the rest of the world and that they are different from other people or any other group or community. This schema creates heavy barriers when meeting new people because this schema will have someone constantly thinking that others, quote, won't get them. So why even bother? The second category for schemas is impaired autonomy and or performance. And this domain includes four schemas. There's dependence slash incompetence, vulnerability to harm or illness, enmeshment slash undeveloped self, and failure. Dependence or incompetence is the belief that you are unable to handle everyday responsibilities in a competent manner. For example, someone with this will think they can't feed themselves properly or that they can't solve daily problems and that they won't be able to exercise good judgment or tackle new tasks. So this person often comes off as a bit helpless. The second schema here is vulnerability to harm or illness. This is when someone has an exaggerated fear that something bad is going to happen all the time. So this is someone who thinks that the world is ending all the time, or that they will drop dead from a heart attack at any minute, or that the elevator in their apartment building is going to crash, or all sorts of just terrible things are constantly going to happen all the time. And it's debilitating. The third schema is enmeshment. Enmeshment is the excessive emotional involvement and closeness with one or more significant others. And in this case, it can often be our parents. And this is excessive to the point where it's at the expense of the child or person having normal social development. What this means is children who are raised with overbearing parents who are constantly around, who never let you just, live or do your own thing, that can have that child growing into an adult who thinks they can't survive or even be happy without the constant support of that parent or even a significant other if we are talking in a relationship context. The fourth schema here is failure. The failure schema is the belief that not only will you fail, but you will always fail, and that there is a reason that you shouldn't try. So people with this life trap will often believe that they're stupid or untalented. They can feel that they're in a lower status or that they're less successful than others, no matter how many achievements they might actually have. Moving to the third category, we have impaired limits, which includes two schemas: entitlement slash grandiosity and insufficient self-control and or self-discipline. For the first one here, we have entitlement or superiority. And this schema is the belief that someone is superior to other people, that they're entitled to special rights and privileges. People living with this life trap often think that they are above any type of rules or guidelines and that they can do or have anything they want, regardless of how realistic, reasonable, or what the cost of it is to others. Sometimes this includes excessive competitiveness or domination of others, which can include asserting power, forcing their opinions, or controlling the behaviors of others to fit in line with their own desires without empathy or concern for the needs or feelings of the other people around them. Insufficient self-control and self-discipline is when someone has difficulty or refuses to hold self-control. Someone living with this life trap won't be able to hold certain level of frustration tolerances, which is something that we do need to achieve personal goals. And this also includes being able to restrain excessive expressions of our emotions and impulses. So someone who has insufficient self-control are people who often try to avoid discomfort. They want to avoid conflict, confrontation, and they will do it at the cost of their own personal fulfillment. The fourth category is other directedness and includes three schemas: subjugation, self-sacrifice, approval seeking slash recognition seeking. Subjugation is the schema that has excessive surrendering, of control to others and has two major forms. So the first one is subjugation of needs, which is the suppression of your preferences, desires, and decisions. Then there's subjugation of emotions, which is when you suppress your emotional expression, especially anger. And people who have this typically feel trapped and believe that their own desires, opinions, and feelings are not as valid or important to others. And that can lead to behaviors like passive aggression and withdrawal of affection, and sometimes even uncontrolled outbursts of emotion, right? So tempers. The second schema for other directedness is self sacrifice. Self sacrifice is the excessive focus on voluntarily meeting the needs of others in daily situations at the expense of your own needs. The third schema is approval seeking / recognition seeking. And this is when someone has a lot of emphasis on gaining approval or attention from other people. These people will do anything to, quote, fit in, which in the end makes that person lose the opportunity to develop and secure a true sense of their own self. Sometimes people with this schema place an overemphasis on status, appearance, social acceptance, or money as a means of gaining approval, admiration, or attention. And they sometimes often rush into major life decisions that are inauthentic or unsatisfying. They also struggle really hard with rejection. The fifth and final category is overvigilance and inhibition and includes four schemas: negativity / pessimism, emotional inhibition, unrelenting standards, and punitiveness. Someone with a pessimistic / negativity schema is someone who's always going to focus on the negative aspects of life. No matter what it is, they will always look at the negative side while minimizing or neglecting the positive or optimistic aspects of life too. These people seem to think that even when things are going amazing, something will ultimately fall apart and become bad again. So someone with this schema will frequently be categorized with traits such as chronic worry, complaining, or indecision. The second schema is emotional inhibition. This is when someone doesn't have the capacity for spontaneous action, feeling, or communication because they are afraid or worried of what others will think, but they also want to avoid feelings of shame or losing control of their impulses altogether. The most common areas of inhibition involve inhibition of anger and aggression, inhibition of positive impulses such as joy, affection, sexual excitement, and play. And lastly, another area of inhibition involves excessive emphasis on rationalizing while disregarding emotions. The fourth schema in this group, and the second to last schema of the day, is unrelentless standards. This seems pretty obvious, but this is the underlying belief that someone must strive or be flawless. This schema typically results in feelings of pressure or difficulty slowing down, and has a significant impact on how we experience pleasure and relaxation. Unrelenting standards typically present as perfectionism, which is when someone has, crazy amount of attention to detail or underestimates how good their own ability is in retrospect to whatever the standard is. They also are someone with rigid rules and many shoulds in different areas of their life. And this can be someone who preoccupies their time with efficiency, but only so more can be done. The last schema of the day is self-punitiveness. Self-punitiveness is the belief that people should be harshly punished for making mistakes and often involves a tendency to be angry, intolerant, unforgiving, and impatient with those who do not meet their expectations or standards. But this also includes themselves, and these types of people can be extremely hard on themselves as well as others. But there it is, the quick and dirty of 18 different life traps that you should be aware of. And the benefits of knowing our schemas is because it can help us to get one step closer to healing certain traits about ourselves. Although schemas may be hard to change at first, don't surrender or avoid them. This is why having resources like Dr. Sajad is so great, because the reality is when healing or facing our schemas, Dr. Sajad is right. We really need to give ourselves a lot of empathy and compassion. Healing is not easy. But let me know what you guys think about schemas and if we should make another episode to talk about it. Honestly, I think it's quite interesting and I would love to have a conversation about this. But you guys let me know. As for the next show, we will be welcoming the lovely Corrine Bedard. Corrine is a relationship designer who will be sharing her story and advice on breaking free from religious and social programming. Corrine honestly is a beautiful soul, and I'm very excited for you to get to meet her. I have had fantastic encounters with her over the last couple of months when I first met her at the Toronto Taboo Show. But then we ventured again, yes, at another event. And yes, she even came to one of the events in Toronto last month. So I'm very excited to have Corrine on the show and for you guys to, yes, meet her. But that's all I have for today. And I hope you have a fantastic night. But you guys know what to do. Stay kinky.